Hell or High Water. There's something refreshing about a simple setup. Here's what a character wants/needs, here's what's preventing him or her from getting it, and here's why we care. You can pare down most stories to something that basic, but few come already that pared down. And while that may sound like a criticism, Hell or High Water does everything else so well that the gaps are kind of filled in, and a simple setup becomes a rich, rewarding experience. Brothers Tanner and Toby Howard, played by Ben Foster and Chris Pine respectively, rob banks in West Texas. A pair of Texas Rangers, played by Jeff Bridges and Gil Birmingham, pursues them. Here's what the characters want/need. Money. Here's what's preventing them from getting it. The law. And here's why we care. We eventually get to that.
Now they can foreclose on Friday. So come hell or high water,
Get the money to the bank on Thursday.
and then you are free and clear.
This last part is what sets Hell or High Water apart from being essentially a retelling of Bonnie and Clyde, except with brothers robbing banks instead of lovers. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, or at least the fictionalized versions from Arthur Penn's movie, first robbed banks as a form of flirting, and later as a way to get back at the banks for their perceived role in the Great Depression, as the movie takes place in 1934.
Used to be my place, but it's not anymore. Bank took it.
We rob banks.
By the way, if you haven't seen Bonnie and Clyde, get on that. And while the Howard boys aren't Robin Hooding quite as directly as Bonnie and Clyde before them,
Y'all gonna steal my gun too?
We ain't stealing from you, we're stealing from the bank.
the parallels between the Great Depression of the early 1930s and the Great Recession of the late 2000s are utilized. These parallels are emphasized by the West Texas setting, which, a few obvious technological advances aside, appears relatively unchanged since the 1930s. But the exact reason of why Tanner and Toby are doing what they're doing, and the manner in which they're doing it, eventually reveals itself in a slowly unraveling quasi-mystery that Bonnie and Clyde just doesn't have. And once that reason is revealed, it adds a welcome layer of nuance and moral ambiguity to an otherwise familiar story. And this is a familiar story, even beyond the Bonnie and Clyde parallels. One of the brothers is reckless and unpredictable, while the other is more cautious, hesitant, and morally grounded.
How'd you manage to stay out of prison for a year?
It's been difficult.
One of the Texas Rangers is literally days from retirement, out for one last case.
You may get to have some fun before they send you off to the rocking chair yet. I may have one hunt left in me.
There are more than a couple instances of visual parody, showing that the cops and the criminals are not so different. Yada yada yada, you've seen movies. But pepper in some interesting cinematography, a great score from Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, similar but slightly inferior to their past masterpiece of a score, and some fantastic performances from all involved, and the result is more than worthwhile. To me, more than anything else, what sets Hell or High Water apart is the humor. It's consistent, it's effective, it's charming, and it's quite surprising in a movie like this. For the first 2/3, the movie has a lighter tone than you would expect, especially given the subject matter. Until suddenly it doesn't, offering a very effective contrast when the stakes are inevitably raised in the final third. As evidenced by the town and Inside Man and the opening of The Dark Knight, and countless others, there's something inherently compelling about bank robberies. Probably the huge stakes, the unpredictability, and the time-sensitive aspect. Hell or High Water delivers all the thrills inherent to stories like this, regardless of how familiar. But more importantly, it's just good filmmaking, even if it's nothing earth-shattering. And even if it goes 0 for 4 at the Oscars, as I expect it will. There's a great scene where the two Texas Rangers stop at a tiny diner while pursuing the Howard boys, and this happens.
You know, I've been working here for 44 years. Ain't nobody ever ordered nothing but T-bone steak and a baked potato. Except this one asshole from New York tried to order trout back in 1987. We don't sell no goddamn trout. T-bone steaks. Steaks cooked medium rare.
Can I get my steak cooked just
That want no question.
All right.
Iced tea for you boys.
Iced tea be great. Iced tea, yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Not a bad metaphor for the movie. If you're looking for trout, i.e. complex characters and maybe some more substantive themes, maybe look elsewhere. But if you're cool with the simple yet satisfying tried and true T-bone, you've come to the right place.